Welcome to FedScoop TV and our series on IT modernization heroes. I'm Wyatt Cash, your host with FedScoop TV, and I'm here with Jason Kimrey, Jason's Area Director for Intel Federal. And Jason, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk a little about just some of your perspectives, looking at the federal market on IT modernization. And I think one of the questions is, I think everyone agrees that there's an urgency to modernize. But I think the question is, what has to happen to accelerate modernization efforts?
So I think we do all agree on it, and I think we've seen the benefits that IT modernization can bring to every other industry, whether it's financial services, education, state and local. All the other markets have gone through it, and I think the issue that's really held it back so far is kind of the rate in which decisions are made. I think the severity or the legacy systems here. I think the federal market has let legacy systems linger for way too long, so I think it's just really hard to move that. And then I think the procurement cycle is also a challenge. So I think if you look kind of the bureaucracy, just the state of legacy systems, and the complexity of the procurement process, I think all of those things combined with some budget challenges are really have been the issues, and luckily I think a lot of those things have, one, been recognized, and two, I think some good fixes are being put in place to try to address that.
Well, speaking of fixes, the administration put forth a proposal to Congress to have a $3.1 billion modernization fund for federal agencies. And I was thinking and curious, what types of systems do you think would lend themselves to get started sooner than later for agencies?
So we're excited about the potential of the bill making its way, the modernization bill. We were supporters of Representative Hoyer's most recent bill, and we sent our support for that. And I think having real focused, separate budget to target modernization programs, I think, is important, as opposed to making it just a part of the IT spend. As far as target systems, I don't know if there's one type of system that's better than others. I think the easy ones have already been moved, but I think those legacy systems, the billing systems, the ERP, I think those are good. I think some are better suited to cloud environments than other. I think anything that can be moved into a cloud-based infrastructure is going to be a little bit easier to move. Some, an on-prem environment's going to be a better fit. And I think the good news is, whether you're looking at an AWS or a Microsoft Azure cloud, or an on-prem infrastructure from partners like Dell, VMware, HP, and others, the whole market has really, I think, done a good job of adopting easier models to modernize your systems. So I think regardless of what type of system it is, I think it's much easier to migrate those to more current platforms, more secure platforms today than it's ever been before.
So we're in a really interesting time, a disruptive time, advances in cloud, agile development, and so forth. I'm kind of curious, particularly from your perspective at Intel, as sort of a leading force in some of these changes. Right. What you see, how your outlook has changed, and what you see ahead over the next 18 months in terms of tools that can help modernize federal government.
Well, I think so Intel is a fundamental building block to the computing ecosystem. We're really all about open standards and open architectures, and we believe that the more open systems are, the more easier it is to move, and then more importantly, once you move to those systems, the less proprietary they are, and the less locked in you are. And I think what I've been excited about, and what's really changed, I think, is the fact that the industry at large has pretty much accepted that it can't just be a Microsoft world or a Google world or a Amazon world. Everyone has to work together. So I think you're seeing some really exciting partnerships from people like Microsoft and Red Hat and others that really kind of recognize that interoperability is a requirement for any organization to move forward. And I think so that's really good. So I think what we've tried to do as a base hardware layer is to make the adoption of these new technologies easier. So heavy investment in some of these cloud architectures, heavy investment in OpenStack and these types of things. And then also just the whole move towards hyper-convergence. Things. It's not all about having a 3-tier architecture anymore. You need to have flexible models that allow people to move their applications, in and out of different environments, fairly seamlessly.
And not to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering if there's any success stories or examples that you've seen in the federal space that people can look to for ways that modernization can get greater traction.
Yeah, and I think there's some really interesting ones that are happening. The one that and sometimes the best success stories have been forced out of necessity. And I look at even what OPM is doing now because of the situation, and State Department. Breaches have actually forced. I think has been one of those driving forces that have made FITARA such a necessary thing. But even healthcare.gov, I think, is a great example of a system that wasn't necessarily a legacy system, but it was certainly a system that was very flawed at its rollout. But through the application of very smart people and dedicated resources, with a very fixed deadline in place, I think it's a great example of a system that's now very functional and providing real citizen value. So I think. Those are some of the examples, and I think there's many more to come. Yes.
Well, certainly we see a lot of those opportunities coming together, the convergence, as you say, and I think it's important that a lot of agencies are able to show what's working to their own management to get buy-in, to get the funding that they need. And let's hope this modernization bill gets some traction in the House as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And one of the things we offered was, there's so many industry best practices of where other companies, whether it's, Intel's, we run a 100,000 employee company, plenty of other examples of where we've done that. And I think the more we can collaborate as private sector and public sector with congressional decision makers to show the real business value of moving forward, whether it's cyber advantages, security advantages, just being more efficient. There's just so many good examples. I think the more we can work together, the better.
Well, Jason, thank you for stopping by, sharing some of your observations on IT modernization with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. I'm Wyatt Cash with FedScoop TV. Thank you for watching, and look for more of our programs at fedscoop.com.